Hello, welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today's podcast, English Listening Practice podcast topic name is How to Learn English Through Reading. We know that for many of you, learning English can feel like a pretty big challenge sometimes, especially when you're trying to get your head around all the grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation. It can often feel like a really steep hill to climb.
Oh, absolutely. It can definitely feel daunting at first. But, what's genuinely transformative and actually quite enjoyable is discovering how reading can be one of the most powerful tools you have. It's such an effective way to truly master the language. Reading, it really immerses you, doesn't it? It exposes you to English as it's actually used, letting you absorb all its little nuances organically. So our deep dive today is basically designed as a comprehensive guide. We want to offer practical strategies and insights to make the whole process really rewarding for you. And that's true no matter if you're, just starting out or are already quite advanced on your language journey.
Okay, let's unpack this right from the start then. Why reading? Why is it such a uniquely powerful tool for learning English? What makes it stand out from, say, other methods?
Well, it really comes down to immersion and how our brains naturally pick up patterns. You see, unlike maybe more traditional classroom methods that might focus heavily on rote memorization, reading puts you face to face with English in its living, breathing form. Think of it like having a continuous, sort of silent conversation with the author. You get to observe their specific word choices, the way they build sentences, all those subtle stylistic things.
You're seeing it used.
Exactly. You're not just learning words in isolation, you're absorbing the rhythm, the tone, the natural flow of English. Yeah. And this means you encounter new vocabulary in context, which interestingly, research shows really helps with memory. Your brain links the new word to how it's actually used straight away. And here's something really key. You see grammar rules being applied naturally. This helps you build up an intuitive grasp, which is often much stronger than just trying to consciously memorize complicated explanations. It builds real fluency, not just recall.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's less about conscious effort sometimes and more about the brain just kind of soaking it up. And you mentioned it's accessible for everyone. How does that passive or maybe intuitive absorption really work?
That's a great way to put it. Intuitive absorption. Reading engages your brain in two really powerful ways. Actively, yes, as you decode the text and figure things out, but also passively as your mind subconsciously absorbs those underlying language patterns over time. And yes, it's incredibly accessible. Whether you're a beginner looking at a simple kid's book or an advanced learner tackling a dense novel, there's always something suitable. It's also quite low pressure, isn't it? You set your own pace. You can go back over a sentence or a paragraph as many times as you need, no judgment. Plus, and this is important, it's a direct doorway into cultural understanding. It fosters a much deeper connection with English-speaking communities than just doing grammar drills ever could.
Okay, so if we nail down the specific advantages, what are the most impactful things reading does for your English? What are the absolute key benefits you see time and again?
Oh, there's a whole bunch of benefits that really make reading a cornerstone for language learning. First off, it's just fantastic for vocabulary expansion. You meet new words and phrases naturally within a story or an article, which is way more effective than memorizing word lists.
Right, because you see how they're used.
Precisely. When you see words in full sentences, their meaning, their usage, even their subtle feeling or connotation becomes much clearer. It leads to really organic vocabulary growth. Secondly, you'll almost certainly see a dramatic improvement in your grammar and syntax. By reading widely, you essentially internalize grammar rules without even trying to study them explicitly. And you start to notice, intuitively, how sentences are put together, how different tenses are used correctly, how punctuation shapes the meaning. This naturally makes your own speech and writing sound more, natural. Then there are your enhanced comprehension skills. Reading trains your brain to process English faster and more accurately. You're constantly practicing understanding main ideas, finding specific details, making inferences, skills that are vital for, everything from exams to just chatting with people.
That makes sense.
What's also great is the exposure to different styles and registers. English isn't just one thing, is it? It's formal, informal, academic, creative. Reading shows you all these different sides. A newspaper article teaches you formal reporting language, while a novel might be full of realistic, everyday dialogue.
Good point.
And a really crucial one is cultural awareness. Books, articles, blogs, they all reflect the culture, the values, sometimes the humor of English-speaking societies. They give you priceless insights into idioms, traditions, social norms. things you absolutely need for effective, authentic communication.
I see.
And as you read more and more, you'll find your confidence just grows. You start recognizing familiar words and sentence structures more often, which naturally boosts your comfort level using English, whether you're speaking, writing, or listening.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And maybe most importantly, reading fosters genuine enjoyment and motivation. If you pick stuff you're actually interested in, reading becomes a pleasure, not a chore. That enjoyment is like fuel, keeping you motivated to learn long term.
That's a really compelling list of benefits. But here's where people often get stuck, I think. There's so much out there to read. How do you even begin to choose what's right for your specific level and interests? What's the secret to finding that sweet spot?
You've definitely hit on a critical point there. Success really does hinge on picking materials that line up with what you like, where you are skill-wise, and what you want to achieve. Let's think about fiction versus nonfiction. Fiction novels, short stories, is brilliant for getting lost in storytelling and creative language. Plus, it often has loads of dialogue, which is great for hearing conversational English. Nonfiction, on the other hand, articles, essays, biographies, is your go-to for factual, sometimes more academic English. It exposes you to formal writing styles and maybe specialized vocabulary, depending on the topic.
So maybe a mix is good.
Often, yes. I usually suggest starting with a mix. Get some entertainment from fiction, build your knowledge with nonfiction. Keeps things interesting. Now, for those just starting out, graded readers are incredibly useful. These are books specifically written or adapted for language learners. They use simpler vocabulary and grammar structures, and often they come with extras like audio versions, comprehension questions, maybe even little glossaries.
Oh, like those Oxford Bookworms or Penguin Readers series.
Exactly like those.
Yeah.
The key tip here is to try and match the reader level to your current CEFR level. That's the Common European Framework. So if you're a beginner, look for A1 or A2 level readers. Then for shorter reads, perfect if you're busy. You've got newspapers, magazines, and blogs. They cover all sorts of topics. Blogs especially can be great for picking up informal language and current expressions. You could check out sites like The Guardian online or National Geographic. Maybe start with shorter articles just to build up your confidence. And finally, don't overlook children's books and young adult YA novels. Seriously. Children's books, like, say, The Very Hungry Caterpillar, are fantastic for beginners. Simple language, lots of pictures for context. And YA novels, like the Harry Potter series, for example, are superb for intermediate learners. They often have relatable themes, and the language is usually pretty accessible but still rich.
Pairing kids' books with audio sounds like a good tip, too.
Absolutely. Great for pronunciation practice alongside the reading.
Okay, so you've navigated the choices, you've picked out your first book or article. Now what? What are those vital first steps to actually starting to read in English, especially if you're feeling a bit nervous about it?
Yeah, those first steps are really important for building momentum. First up, setting realistic goals is absolutely key. Aim for something achievable so you stay motivated. Maybe if you're a beginner, it's just reading 1 page a day. An intermediate learner might aim for a short story each week. An advanced learner, perhaps a novel a month.
Like SMART goals. Specific, measurable.
Exactly. Using a framework like SMART specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound can really help structure your reading plan and make it feel less overwhelming. Second, it's really helpful to understand your current reading level. Try to honestly assess your English proficiency so you pick the right materials. A good rule of thumb is, can you understand about 70–80% of the text without constantly reaching for a dictionary? If yes, it's probably a good level. If it's much easier or much harder, just adjust what you're reading.
That's a practical tip.
And third, and this is probably the most crucial one, build a consistent reading habit. Consistency really is king here. Try to schedule some dedicated reading time, even if it's just 10 or 15 minutes every day. Find a comfy spot where you won't be distracted. Maybe start with shorter text so you don't feel bogged down. Keep track of your progress, maybe just a note in a journal or an app.
And celebrating milestones.
Definitely. Acknowledge when you finish a book or reach a goal. It sounds small, but it genuinely helps keep you motivated.
Right. That makes perfect sense. Now, I've often found myself just letting my eyes scan the page, thinking I'm reading, but maybe I'm just skimming. Is that really learning? What's the difference between that and active reading? And how do we make sure we're maximizing the learning part?
That's a really sharp observation. Passive reading, just sort of skimming, definitely has its uses, like getting a quick overview. But active reading is what really supercharges your learning. One really powerful strategy is annotating and highlighting. Don't be afraid to mark up your book or print out. Underline or highlight key words, phrases, sentences that jump out at you or seem important. You can also scribble notes in the margins, maybe summarize an idea, jot down a question you have. This forces you to engage more deeply and helps you remember things.
And for new words, guess first.
Yes. Always try to guess the meaning of an unfamiliar word from the context before you look it up. It's great practice. Another fantastic technique is keeping a vocabulary journal. This could be an actual notebook or a digital file, whatever works for you. For each new word you want to learn, note down its part of speech. Is it a noun, verb, adjective? The sentence you found it in, its definition. And this is key. Create your own example sentence using that word.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Let's say you find the word courageous. You'd note it's an adjective. Copy the sentence, like, the firefighter made a courageous rescue. Write the definition, brave, then make your own sentence. It was courageous of her to speak up. That last step really helps solidify it. Also, summarizing and paraphrasing are excellent active reading tools. Try summarizing a paragraph or a short section in your own words after reading it. This really checks your comprehension. Paraphrasing, saying the same thing in different words, is brilliant for reinforcing vocabulary and grammar patterns. So if the text says, the journey was arduous and took many weeks, you might paraphrase it as, it was a difficult trip that lasted for several weeks. See? Same meaning, different words. And finally, ask questions while you read. Actively engage with the text. Ask yourself things like, what's the main point here? Or why did that character do that? It keeps your mind switched on and promotes critical thinking.
That really clarifies the active part. So this brings us right to the core of language learning, vocabulary and grammar. How does this kind of deep, engaged reading specifically speed up your progress in these vital areas?
It happens in a very natural, very powerful way. When it comes to expanding your vocabulary through reading, the main engine is contextual learning. Like we said, when you hit an unfamiliar word, try to guess its meaning from the surrounding words and sentences first. Look for clues, synonyms, antonyms, examples, the general topic.
Can you give another example of guessing from context?
Yeah, okay. Imagine you read. The government's new policy was highly controversial, sparking widespread protests and debates across the country. Even if you don't know controversial, the clues sparking widespread protests and debates strongly suggest it means something causing disagreement or argument.
Right, I see.
Then, when you do need to look up a word, using dictionaries effectively makes a big difference. I strongly recommend trying a monolingual English dictionary like Merriam-Webster online or the Oxford English Dictionary.
Why monolingual?
Because it keeps your brain thinking in English. Constantly translating back to your native language can slow down immersion. A good English dictionary gives you definitions, pronunciation guides, often with audio, example sentences, and sometimes synonyms and antonyms, all in English. Resources like the Cambridge or Longman dictionaries online are also excellent for learners. Also, pay attention to word families and root words. This is super efficient. If you learn the root port, meaning carry, you can start to understand words like transport, import, export, portable. And learning common prefixes like un or air and suffixes like able or able helps you unlock the meaning of tons of new words without having to look each one up individually.
And what about the grammar side? How does reading help there?
For improving grammar through reading, it's mostly about careful observation. First, start observing sentence structures. Pay attention to how sentences are built. Notice the standard subject-verb-object patterns, but also look at more complex sentences with different clauses and how writers use connecting words like although, however, or therefore to link ideas smoothly. Second, try identifying patterns in verb tenses. Notice how authors use different tenses, past simple, present perfect, past continuous to show time and sequence events. Maybe even jot down a few examples of interesting tense usage you find. And third, learn punctuation and style by observation. See how commas are used for pauses or lists, how semicolons connect related ideas, how quotation marks work for dialogue. Try to mimic these patterns in your own writing. It really improves clarity and makes your English look more polished.
It might seem a bit strange, but many think reading is just for, well, reading. But you're saying it can actually boost your speaking and listening skills too. How does that connection work?
You're absolutely spot on. It's much more connected than people might think. Reading offers some very direct pathways to improving your spoken English and your listening comprehension. Firstly, reading aloud is incredibly helpful. It gives you direct practice with pronunciation, with intonation, the rise and fall of your voice, and with the natural rhythm of English. It also builds confidence in actually producing the sounds. A great tip is to record yourself reading a passage, then listen back and maybe compare it to an audio version if you have one. You'll quickly spot areas to improve.
That's a practical idea.
Secondly, pairing reading with audio is honestly a game changer for many learners. Get an audiobook version of the book you're reading, listen to the audio while you follow along in the text. This directly connects the written word with its spoken sound. It's fantastic for improving listening comprehension and really refining your pronunciation at the same time.
Where can people find audiobooks easily?
Platforms like Audible have huge selections, though they're subscription-based. LibriVox is another great resource. It offers free audiobooks of books in the public domain read by volunteers. And finally, try mimicking native speakers. When you're listening to audiobooks or even dialogue in movies with subtitles, pay attention to how the characters or narrators speak. Try imitating their pronunciation, their rhythm, their intonation. It helps you adopt more natural speech patterns over time.
Okay, and zooming out a bit again, reading doesn't just teach you language, it opens up entire cultures, doesn't it? How does that deeper connection happen through the pages?
It really is a fantastic gateway to cultural fluency. Reading deeply enriches your cultural understanding, which is just essential if you want true mastery of a language. For one thing, books and articles are often full of idioms and slang which are deeply tied to culture. You might read expressions like, it's raining cats and dogs, or maybe informal words common in certain regions.
Right, things you wouldn't find in a textbook.
Exactly. Make a note of them, find out what they mean, and maybe even try using them yourself in the right context. It helps you sound much more natural. Beyond just phrases, reading allows you to explore cultural context in a really rich way. Different books reflect the values, the traditions, sometimes the sense of humor of the societies they come from. For instance, reading Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice gives you amazing insights into 19th century British upper-class society. Reading something like The Catcher in the Rye offers a window into American teenage perspectives from a different era. And by choosing materials about topics relevant to English-speaking countries, maybe their holidays, politics, pop culture, you can also connect with those cultures more broadly. You start understanding common references that crop up in conversations or media.
This is all incredibly practical. Now, a question I imagine many listeners have. How do we personalize this? How can you, the listener, tailor your reading approach specifically based on where you are right now? Beginner, intermediate, or advanced?
That's crucial, matching the strategy to your current level. Let's break it down. For beginners, I'd strongly suggest starting with picture books, graded readers specifically marked A1 or A2, and maybe very simple news articles designed for learners. Your main goal should just be understanding the basic idea, not every single word. Use the pictures. Use glossaries if they're provided. Maybe even look up keywords. The Very Hungry Caterpillar, like we mentioned, is a perfect example focusing on basic words like food, days, numbers, helped by clear visuals.
Okay, makes sense for beginners. What about intermediate?
For intermediate learners, you're ready to step it up. Try young adult novels, short stories, interesting blogs on topics you like, or maybe magazines. Now you should start tackling longer texts. Actively try to use a dictionary less often. Really push yourself to guess meanings from context first. A really great activity at this stage is summarizing chapters or articles in your own words. It boosts comprehension and output skills. A book like The Giver by Lois Lowry could be a good fit here. Engaging story, accessible language, but with some depth.
Got it. And for the advanced learners?
For advanced learners, it's time to really challenge yourself. Dive into classic literature. Read academic articles in fields that interest you, or tackle complex contemporary novels. Your strategy should shift towards deeper analysis. Think about themes, the author's style, subtle cultural references. Maybe even write critical essays or reviews based on what you read. That really pushes your high-level thinking and expression in English. A book like George Orwell's 1984, for instance, offers endless material for complex discussion and analysis.
That's a really clear roadmap for different levels. And it makes me think, technology has changed everything. How can we really leverage modern tech to make this whole reading for language learning thing even more powerful and, frankly, easier for ourselves?
Oh, technology offers some fantastic enhancements, absolutely. E-readers and reading apps, think Kindle, Kobo, or even apps like Google Play Books or Apple Books are brilliant. They often have built-in dictionaries. You can just tap on a word you don't know and get an instant definition. Highlighting is easy, note-taking too. Many track your reading speed and progress automatically. Plus, you can adjust the font size and background color for comfortable reading.
That instant lookup feature is great.
It really is. Then you have online dictionaries and translation tools. Websites like Word Reference, Merriam-Webster Online, or Lingui can give you quick definitions, usage examples, sometimes even translations if you really need them. But again, I'd caution against over-relying on translation. Try to stick with the English definitions as much as possible to keep yourself immersed.
Good reminder.
And finally, let's not forget audiobooks and podcasts again. We talked about pairing reading with audio. Technology makes this super easy. Podcasts related to books, author interviews, or even general interest topics like the Moth Storytelling Podcast, or dedicated learning resources like BBC Learning English, they all complement your reading beautifully and work those listening skills.
It's not always going to be easy, though, is it? Let's be realistic. What are some common bumps in the road you might hit when learning English through reading? And crucially, how do we navigate past them?
That's a fair point. Challenges are definitely part of the process, but they're usually manageable with the right approach. A common one is dealing with difficult texts. If you pick something and it just feels way too hard, don't just give up. Try breaking it down into much smaller chunks. Read just a paragraph or two at a time. Or see if there's a simpler version available, maybe a graded reader adaptation. Or sometimes reading a summary or watching a video about the plot before you read can give you enough context to make the original text feel less intimidating.
Okay, that's helpful. What about just losing steam? Motivation.
Yes, staying motivated. This is huge. The absolute best defense against losing motivation is to choose topics and genres you are genuinely interested in. If you love sci-fi, read sci-fi. If you love cooking, read food blogs. Also, setting those small, achievable goals we talked about helps a lot. And don't forget to reward yourself. Finish a tricky chapter. Allow yourself that episode of your favorite show. It reinforces the positive habit.
And time. Everyone's busy.
Managing time effectively is always a challenge. But look for those pockets of dead time in your day. Your commute on the bus or train, waiting for an appointment, perfect reading time. Even 10 minutes here and there adds up. Scheduling a specific short time each day can work wonders too. Maybe combine it with something else. Listen to an audiobook while you're doing chores or exercising.
Those are really practical solutions. So the ultimate aim here is to make reading a smooth, consistent, almost automatic part of daily life, right? What are some clever ways to really weave it into your routine?
Exactly. Making it a natural habit is the goal. One really simple but effective way is reading during commutes, as we just touched on. Always have a book or your e-reader with you. Those minutes really accumulate. Another powerful strategy is creating a specific reading routine. Maybe it's the last 15 minutes before you go to sleep or the first 15 minutes with your morning coffee. Find a time that works for you and try to stick to it. Consistency builds the habit.
And connecting with others.
Yes. Consider joining book clubs or reading groups. These don't have to be formal in-person things anymore. There are tons of online communities. Goodreads is a huge one, or maybe local library groups. Discussing books with others, whether they're learners or native speakers, is fantastic for deepening your understanding. And it gives you a great low-pressure way to practice your speaking skills too.
Okay, so you're reading regularly, you're using active strategies, but how do you actually know if it's working? How can you track your improvement and keep that motivation high when you see progress?
That's a great question. Tracking progress is key for staying motivated. First, set clear milestones. We mentioned goals like reading a certain number of pages or books. Make them specific. Maybe learn 20 new words this week, or read one short story entirely in English. Second, take time to reflect on your improvements. Maybe once a month, just jot down in a journal how you feel your reading speed is changing, how much you understand without a dictionary, how much bigger your vocabulary feels. Looking back at these notes over time can be incredibly encouraging.
Right, acknowledging the progress.
Exactly. And third, celebrate those small wins. Seriously, when you reach a milestone, finish that book, understand that difficult article, reward yourself. It could be anything you enjoy watching an English film, buying yourself a small treat. It reinforces the positive feeling associated with reading and learning.
That's great advice. Maybe we can bring this all together with a few quick examples, just snapshots of how these strategies have actually worked for real learners.
Absolutely. Let's think about, say, Maria. She started as a beginner, feeling quite overwhelmed. She began with simple graded readers and children's picture books. Her goal was just 1 page a day, and she kept a little notebook for new words. After about 6 months of this consistent, manageable effort, she found she could comfortably read short stories and follow basic conversations much more easily. It was a huge confidence boost.
Nice. What about someone intermediate?
Okay, let's take Ahmed. He was at an intermediate level. He decided to read young adult novels because he found the stories engaging. Crucially, he also joined an online book club. Discussing the plots and characters with others online really pushed his speaking and writing skills alongside his reading. After about a year, he felt confident enough to start writing short essays in English for his studies.
Wow, the discussion part really helped.
It often does. And for an advanced example, consider Lee. She was already quite proficient, but wanted to reach a near-native level for university. She tackled classic literature challenging books like Jane Eyre. She didn't just read them, she wrote detailed reviews, analyzed the themes and the author's style. This very deep engagement significantly boosted her critical thinking and nuanced language use, helping her excel in her advanced English exams.
Those are really inspiring examples. They show it works at every level. So wrapping this all up, what does this really mean for you, our listener? Reading, it seems, is truly a gateway to mastering English. It's incredibly versatile, it can be really enjoyable, and it's just an exceptionally effective way to build your vocabulary, sharpen your grammar, and connect much more deeply with English-speaking cultures. It feels like it's about way more than just learning words.
It absolutely is. By choosing materials that genuinely interest you, setting those clear, achievable goals, and really actively using some of these reading strategies we've talked about, you absolutely can make steady, meaningful progress. We really hope you feel encouraged to embrace reading, not just as a short-term task to learn English, but maybe as a lifelong habit. A habit that lets you continuously discover new ideas, new perspectives, whole new worlds, just by turning the pages. It truly is a journey of endless discovery.
We certainly hope you found this deep dive valuable today. If you did, please do take a moment to like this video, share it with anyone else who might benefit, and be sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel for more English learning content.